Good evening, I'm Saul Saenz, and this is ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. Happy Mother's Day, and thank you for sharing your Sunday evening with us. It's only appropriate that on this day, we talk about a topic a mother can truly relate to. This week, a Supreme Court draft of an opinion was leaked, and the publication of that document is sending shockwaves throughout the nation, reigniting a divisive issue that has split the country in half since the Supreme Court first ruled on Roe versus Wade in 1973. That landmark decision gave women the right to choose if they want to have an abortion. It has been the law of the land ever since. Fast forward almost 50 years, and the issue is just as controversial as it was back then. The draft was a 67-page opinion written by Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito. I want to show you a portion of that draft that triggered the prevailing thought that Roe versus Wade could be overturned. Justice Alito wrote, quote, "Roe was egregiously wrong from the start. Its reasoning was exceptionally weak, and the decision has had damaging consequences, and far from bringing about a national settlement of the abortion issue, Roe and Casey have inflamed debate and deepened division." That portion of the draft opinion raised cheers and jeers depending on which side of the issue you may stand on. It should be pointed out, this is only a draft and not a final decision. That final decision is expected to come later this year. Here to talk about this latest battle on abortion is former Planned Parenthood director Betty Hoover. Once hearing about the possibility of Roe versus Wade being overturned, Ms. Hoover called that a slap in the face. Also joining us is Mark Cavalier. Mr. Cavalier is with Southwest Coalition for Life. Thank you both for taking time to talk to us. Ms. Hoover, do you see the leak? Let's start with you. Do you see the leak of the Supreme Court document as a threat to Roe versus Wade being the law of the land?
I do, and I'm even more concerned that something of that magnitude was leaked, period. It makes me wonder what's really going on. I mean, Roe has been the law of the land, as you pointed out, for over 50 years. It will be absolutely devastating to women if it is overturned. You
were there when obviously it was passed in 1973, as was I, and it was very divisive back then, a lot of protests, a lot of demonstrations back then. Do you foresee the same thing happening as Supreme Court justices prepare to release a final decision? I think we've already seen it starting to happen. I think it's going to escalate depending on how things go, but definitely both sides are going to be out there stating their beliefs and standing up for what they believe in. I just hope that nothing turns violent. Mr. Cavalier, does this document that was released shed a ray of hope for pro-life groups, and why?
Yeah, absolutely. We are cautiously optimistic that this is really a leap in the right direction, and we really believe that when Roe versus Wade was decided by the Supreme Court in the early 70s, it was an attempt to solve a lot of social injustice issues that women were raising at the time, like equal pay and paid maternity leave, and really a society that supports women and the very unique life cycle and functions of a woman's body. And instead, what Roe versus Wade did is it kind of put a Band-Aid on that by putting the expectation of women to adapt the normal healthy functions of their body to adapt to society rather than the other way around. And so I think this is an opportunity we can actually work together to say that we need to come together to support women and the functions of their body in our society.
Your opinion on that, Ms. Hoover?
I'm kind of baffled by what you're saying. To me, it came about at a time of extreme change in the United States. There was a lot happening. We were winding down with the Vietnam War, and we had everything else going on. And I thought it was a huge step forward for women. It gave us control over our bodies. It gave us the right to make health decisions based on our own beliefs.
So what you're saying is that if it's overturned, we're actually taking a step backwards?
Probably 15 or 100 steps backward, as far as I'm concerned.
How so? How so?
I guess I've been alive a long time. I'm not a young person.
Yeah.
I've lived pre-Roe and post-Roe. I've worked in situations where I've seen illegal abortion. I have had friends who've had illegal abortion. It is so difficult. It is so hard. It needs to stay alive. We need to keep Roe going for the health and the psychiatric health of women.
Ms. Hoover, is the question before the Supreme Court, as it was back in 1973, is it a women's right versus an unborn child's right?
That's kind of a tough question. I think it's more a women's right versus people in power who want to control women.
Mr. Cavalier?
Yeah, so medically speaking, a woman who's with child medically is defined as a dyad, that they're so interconnected that one of their health affects the other. And so that's what I'm saying is that I really feel if we get to the root of this, is that at the root of it has been men who have objectified and really failed women. And that's something that I really see this as an opportunity that abortion in Roe versus Wade kind of told women, or kind of told men, that it was okay to objectify women, where really women should be in control of the sexual relationship. And what Roe versus Wade has done is it's created a culture of men who feel like they can continue objectifying and kind of create this sex on demand attitude towards women. And as a man, I apologize for that, because I know every woman out there has been on the receiving end of that. And I think that's really heartbreaking that we've put women in a situation for the last 50 years to alter, suppress, and destroy the natural, healthy functions of their body. It's something that's really hard. Whether somebody's pro-choice or pro-life, abortion is very hard. And I'm personally...
I agree with you completely on
Yeah.
that.
And so I think it's very tragic that we baked into our society this idea that we have to treat women in that way. And so I see this, like I said, as an opportunity for us to work together to say, what can we do as a society to fix these problems that really are going to cater to women and their unique
I think
needs.
what you're doing is putting it on a grander social level than I am. You're speaking more globally than I am.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking from a woman's point of view, solely a woman's point of view. You know, pregnancy can be absolutely wonderful. I've seen the joy on friends' faces when they find out they're pregnant.
Sure.
But if a woman is not ready for that, and she has to make that other decision, a pregnancy can be terrifying, it can be life-threatening, it can be just debilitating.
Yeah. And
what we're gonna do is we're gonna continue the conversation, but we're gonna take a really quick break. You're watching ABC-7 National. When we come back, we will hear from the most recent Supreme Court judges giving their opinion on Roe versus Wade when they were all going through Supreme Court confirmation hearings. This is ABC-7 Extra Sunday edition, where news comes first.
I knew that I was going to be a firefighter. The best way to make myself competitive would be through a bachelor degree. All of the classes have given me extensive knowledge beyond what the Fire Academy would have given us. The faculty was just so amazing. Most of them were already firefighters, fire chiefs. My education has opened so many doors for me, it is absolutely priceless. From the day I received my honorable discharge to the day I went to work for a county fire department was 2 weeks. My name is Earl Day, and I am an AMU graduate.
There's a reason ABC-7 is the team you know
and the team you trust. We know your time is valuable.
That's why we strive to bring you context, depth, and perspective to each story that you won't find anywhere else.
So many people at ABC-7 have made it their life's work to bring you timely, accurate news and information you count on.
The team you know and trust is deeper and more committed to you than ever.
That's why at ABC-7, news comes first.
Well, it's going to be a beautiful sunny day today, and we can expect much more of the same over the next 2 days.
Motorcycles are not invisible, but they can seem that way to drivers who aren't paying close attention. Look twice for motorcycles. There's a life riding on it.
When more than 120,000 of you were overcharged for your trash collection.
A glitch that I didn't know about until I got my water bill.
ABC-7's investigative team went to work for you.
I filed an open records request that is now giving us better insight as to what went wrong. Here's what I found.
Going deeper.
Here's what was happening behind the scenes.
Getting you answers.
We are working on a solution for affected customers.
When the issues affect your pocketbook,
the water utility promised to refund that money.
You can count on ABC-7, where news comes first.
A precedent that has now been on the books for several decades. It has been challenged, it has been reaffirmed, but it is an issue that is involved in litigation now at all levels.
As a judge, it is an important precedent of the Supreme Court. By it, I mean Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey. Been reaffirmed many times. Casey is precedent on precedent, which itself is an important factor.
Do you view Roe as having super precedent?
Well, Senator, a super precedent is
in numbers.
It has been reaffirmed many times. I can say that. Part of being a good judge is coming in and taking precedent as it stands. And your personal views about the precedent have absolutely nothing to do with the good job of a judge.
People use super precedent differently.
Okay.
The way that it's used in the scholarship and the way that I was using it in the article that you're reading from was to define cases that are so well settled that no political actors and no people seriously push for their overruling. And I'm answering a lot of questions about Roe, which I think indicates that Roe doesn't fall in that category. And scholars across the spectrum say that doesn't mean that Roe should be overruled.
Is Roe settled law?
That is the precedent of the court and settled in terms of the holding of the court.
I think that the continuing holdings of the court are that the woman's life and that the woman's health must be protected in any abortion regulation.
I think I should stay away from discussions of particular issues that are likely to come before the court again. And in the area of abortion, there are cases on the court's docket, of course. It is an issue that does come before the court.
Do you believe it is the settled law of the land? If settled means that it can't be re-examined, then that's one thing. It is a precedent that is protected, entitled to respect under the doctrine of stare decisis in that way.
Just asking you whether you believe that the Constitution protects a woman's right to choose to terminate her pregnancy.
I have no reason or agenda to prejudge the issue or to predispose to rule one way or the other on the issue of abortion.
Roe versus Wade is the law of this country, at least for more than 20 years.
Welcome back to ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. Those were Supreme Court justices during their nomination hearings when asked about Roe versus Wade. You may have noticed none of the justices ever hinted at reversing that landmark ruling. I also want to welcome back Betty Hoover, former director of Planned Parenthood here in El Paso, and Mark Cavalier with Southwest Coalition for Life. And Ms. Hoover, at the very top of the program, I mentioned that you believe that the possibility of the overturning of Roe versus Wade, you said it was a slap in the face. Is this one of the reasons why? Is because there was no hint when these Supreme Court justices were undergoing these hearings? They never even mentioned, they never even hinted that they were thinking about overturning this ruling?
In part, but I also think it's obvious that the judges were not trying to be succinct in their answers, but going, straying around the true issue. They were not in black. It could have been a black and white discussion, but it wasn't. So I don't think we really knew exactly where they stood.
Mr. Cavalier, does this continue to not be a black and white discussion? Is there so much more involved that perhaps hasn't been discussed and needs to be discussed first before we ultimately decide whether or not Roe versus Wade is overturned?
Well, the thing we have to keep in mind is that when Roe versus Wade was decided in the early 1970s, I think that we as the pro-life movement have to give a little bit of grace because they were working with, 50-year-old, antiquated, outdated science and medical technology. There's been so many advancements in the last 50 years. Women's healthcare has changed so much. We have better understanding of endocrinology. We have better understanding of fetal development with ultrasound technologies, and with NICU technologies now have moved viability of a child up to as early as 21 weeks. And so there's a lot that has to be considered, and I think this is a good opportunity to update the law of the land to match what we know now to better respect and work around women's health.
But what I don't think has changed, though, is a woman's psyche, a woman's belief on what she ought to do with her body. Do you agree with that, Mr. Cavalier?
So the question is, has it been a fair choice? And so women have had this choice that we've been talking about, but the choice has been really imposed on them that, like I said, that we've kind of put the expectation of women to adapt to society rather than the other way around. And so I really, like I said, this is an opportunity for us to unite together and say we need to really have social justice for women finally after 50 years. It's really been derailed for the last 50 years by slapping this Band-Aid of abortion on it. And I just think women deserve better than abortion. I think we can do better.
Ms. Hoover, do you think that by overturning Roe versus Wade, we would be depriving women of social justice?
Yes, I do.
Elaborate, please.
I realize that women have come a long way, but we're still not where we need to be, and taking the right to personal health care away, to me, is inappropriate.
Did you ever, in your wildest dreams, ever believe that Roe versus Wade would be ever overturned? Ms. Hoover?
I had hoped that it never would. The night that I got the message on my phone about the leak, I sat in stunned silence, and then I just started crying My husband was going, "What's wrong with you?" And I handed him the phone, and he became speechless also. I never thought that this would happen.
It's that personal?
It's very personal.
Your thoughts, Mr. Cavalier?
Yeah, I appreciate what you said because I do agree because healthcare should support and cater to the natural healthy functions of a woman's body, and we've seen so many people that we've worked with where abortion has come in to alter, suppress, and destroy that rather than working around it. And again, that does not match our definition of healthcare, and so that's where I just really feel we can do better by supporting women and creating a society that caters.
But again, I think you're speaking much more globally. I'm taking this from an individual, very much an individual point of view, because that's where the decision has to come down to.
Sure.
I appreciate the things you're saying about empowering women in society, but this is a very personal issue.
Understood.
It should not be touched by the legislature. It should not be touched by the Supreme Court. Roe needs to stand so women can make that personal decision and have access to safe and legal abortion if it is the choice that they decide to make.
Ms. Hoover, do you think that's what's missing in this debate, the personal aspect of it?
Very much so. Definitely. I mean, those justices, unless they've faced an unintended pregnancy, how do they know what it feels like? It's very personal. And with proper counseling and guidance, a woman can make a decision as to what's going to be best for herself.
Okay, we're going to take another quick break and continue the conversation. You're watching ABC-7 Extra, a Sunday edition. Still ahead, El Paso Bishop Mark Seitz comments on the leaked Supreme Court document and what this may mean if Roe versus Wade is struck down. We'll be back.
Waitress, the hit Broadway musical with songs by Grammy Award winner Sarah Bareilles, is a little slice of heaven. New York Magazine calls it sweet, sassy, passionate, and delightful. Waitress, the hilarious hit Broadway musical. Order up.
Tickets on sale now at elpasolive.com.
We've made a major upgrade to the ABC-7 studios.
But the team you know and trust still has the same commitment you expect when it comes to complete coverage of breaking news.
This is a lot more than new furniture and monitors.
We've also made a major investment in behind-the-scenes technology.
We've enhanced our ability to make complex stories understandable with big, bold graphics.
Always searching for new ways to serve you.
ABC-7, where news comes first.
When a big change in the weather is coming to the borderlands, a first alert is the Storm Track Weather Team signal to be prepared.
We could see gusts up to 50 miles per hour.
We issue ABC-7 first alerts for times like this when we have blowing dust and sand, reduced visibilities, and strong winds. We do it days in advance to keep your family in the know and keep them safe.
First alerts, one more way the ABC-7 Storm Track Weather Team helps you plan your day and keep your family safe. ABC-7's commitment to the borderland is strongest when big news breaks.
A massive fire in downtown El Paso. Flames are still very intense. We have multiple crews on the ground right now, live on the scene.
When did you realize this was going to get out of control?
Probably about 5 minutes after.
Could the walls collapse?
It could, yeah.
What kind of extra perspective can you give us on what it's been like for El Paso fire crews? Typically, we're not on the air at this time, but we are continuing our live breaking news coverage.
ABC-7, complete coverage of breaking news.
Welcome back to this third and final segment of ABC-7 Extra. Catholic Church Bishop Mark Seitz released a statement following news that the Supreme Court authenticated the leaked documents regarding the possible future of Roe versus Wade. The following are excerpts from the bishop's statements.
The unauthorized release of a draft of the majority opinion of our U.S. Supreme Court is a severe violation of the essential norms of confidentiality for the court, which should be investigated. Yet, the content of the draft has begun to restore in me a hope that was shattered nearly 50 years ago. It moves me to rededicate myself and the Church of El Paso to provide such dedicated care to mothers and fathers who find themselves facing an unexpected pregnancy that they would never feel pressure to end that child's life. a community that truly loves and respects every human person, mother, father, child, no matter their color, no matter their origin, no matter whether the child is anticipated or not, will be a community in which no one would ever suggest a right to kill an innocent human being.
And I also want to welcome back to ABC-7 Extra Betty Hoover and Mark Cavalier. Mr. Cavalier, I want to ask you, does the Southwest Coalition for Life counsel women either way to either abortion or life?
We believe in empowering women with really all the information. Women deserve more information, not less. And so we want to make sure that they have all the information, they know all the support that's available to them, because we do see individuals that we work with every day that have very heartbreaking stories that really feel like they have no choice. We find that the vast majority of seeking women really aren't even pro-life or pro-choice. They just feel like they're in a crisis and they have no choice and don't know the support that's available to them. And so that's why we're really committed to providing excellent health care that helps them to be empowered and realize that they can do this when everyone else is saying that no, you can't be successful and be a mom, and you can't go to finish your education and be a mom. We want to empower them to know that they can do that, and if they do choose abortion, we're still there for them to provide hope and healing and forgiveness.
Ms. Hoover, does the possibility of the overturning of Roe versus Wade bring back shades of a dark past when women, because one of the things that we've been seeing in a lot of demonstrations are the hangers, are the coat hangers. Does this bring back those memories?
Absolutely. When I first graduated from college, I worked in an emergency room in a major Southwest city. And my job was as a social worker. And I will never forget one night that changed my life forever. I was on duty, and I heard the ER doors open. And of course, being a social worker, my job was to go see if the client or the patient needed any help. And what I found was a woman who was lying on a gurney. She was writhing and screaming in pain. And I asked the ambulance attendant what had happened. And he said, well, we got a call from her 5-year-old son who said, Mommy's hurt. Come help. And as I talked to the woman after we got her into a room, I was holding her hand and I said, tell me what happened. And she said, I don't want to be pregnant. And she tried to terminate her pregnancy by douching with Drano. And it ate up her insides. She not only lost her uterus, she lost her vagina and part of her intestines, and she almost died. And what would that do? Her little 4-year-old or 5-year-old is the one calling. She already had 2 other kids, and she's only 21. It broke my heart.
Your thoughts about that, Mr. Cavalier, the possibility that perhaps women will, well, if it's outlawed, that women will have to resort to something similar?
Yeah, and like I said, we have to put the expectation back on society to help women, and don't put the expectation on women to have to deal with these situations by themselves. And we've seen heartbreaking situation at the Santa Teresa abortion facility just recently, where a woman went and had a botched medical abortion followed by a botched surgical abortion, and went to find answers. And instead, because she was emotional, the abortionist actually, the facility called the police on her for disturbance of the peace, and she was arrested. And it was just absolutely heartbreaking. And the only time I've ever seen a woman arrested because of an abortion was the abortion facility that was not providing her the health care that she needed. And it was really, luckily our team was able to go get her released from jail and take her to the hospital to treat the infection that she was developing. And so, unfortunately, there's stories on both sides, and that's why I think that this is an opportunity for us to come together and make sure that we have systems in place as a society to better serve and better help the needs of women.
But the problem is, if Roe v. Wade is overturned, and you brought up something important, abortion is not going to go away. There's still going to be a demand for abortion, and when we're going to find, some women will be able to find a way to get an abortion.
Right.
But the problem will be, it will no longer be regulated. It could become unsafe, and women, even more women could die. It also sets up a socioeconomic chasm between the haves and the have-nots. Women who have a little bit of money and power can go to another state and get an abortion. Women who don't have the means have no choice.
Right, which means we need to do more as a society to step up and serve women with free, quality health care that really is serving the natural, healthy functions of their body.
I completely agree with the full health care, but I still believe that abortion should be legal, and it's a woman's private decision to make.
Ms. Hoover, what do you envision will be happening in the coming days as we come closer to the Supreme Court finally, ruling on whether or not to overturn Roe versus Wade? What do you envision will be happening in the coming days?
That's hard to say. I'm not good at being a futuristic person and looking into the future. I imagine a lot of women right now, and a lot of people all over the country, are looking into their hearts and their souls and deciding what they feel is best. I know that I've heard polarization topics about it. You know, I've heard people on one side and the other side, and we talk about it. But I think right now it's chaos. And I think that chaos needs to be calmed by letting Roe stand.
Mr. Cavalier, your thoughts?
I envision a future where we can come together and we're doing more as a community. I think regardless of our opinions on the procedure of abortion, where we can agree and say, regardless of Roe, we have to do more to help women so that abortion becomes unthinkable and there's not a situation where someone feels that this is the only option that they have left to take.
Well, I agree a lot in part with what you just said, especially if women have access to contraception. They need access to affordable contraception. It needs to be made much more available than it is right now. We have all these parental consent laws on the books that keep young people from accessing contraception, and then they may end up pregnant. And then we have a teen pregnancy and a cycle starts. Women need access to full and complete health care.
Betty Hoover, Mark Cavalier, thank you so much for sharing your Sunday evening with us and obviously elaborating on this debate. Thank you.
Thank you.
You may have noticed that throughout the program, I did not use sound bites from politicians. I can assure you, many have weighed in as this will no doubt become a highly politicized issue during midterm elections. There's no question the issue surrounding abortion is contentious and will be with us even after Supreme Court just issue an eventual ruling because, as we can see, no decision is final. One thing is certain, ABC-7 will cover that decision and bring you in-depth perspective when that happens. Thank you for joining us. I'm Saul Saenz, and this has been ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. Good night y buenas noches.